Hi there folks, my name's Novamoon24 and welcome to another review of a Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft. So today we are having a look at a magnificent example of classic aviation as we take to the skies and we test out the latest release from Big Radials, the release of their rendition of the JRF-6 Goose from Grumman Aircraft. Now, this is an incredible looking aircraft, and for those of you who've been flight simming especially in the ESP sims for a number of years, you may think, well, this looks rather familiar, and it does, but let me assure you, this is not the Goose that you think you might know. And we will discover more about that as we look through and we evaluate this magnificent aircraft. So first off, before we get started with this review, first of all, I want to say a huge shout out and a huge thank you to the team at Big Radials for providing the review copy of this aircraft for review today. And we're going to be doing our standard little format review here. We're going to be do our traditional long form review where we're going to be having a look at the externals here. We're then going to go through the internals. We're going to go through a full startup, a test flight, and show off some of the amazing features of this aircraft, particularly some of the things that may catch some of the unwary aviators, that is for sure. Before we, though, get started into this one, I really just do want to just overall make a comment about aircraft for this sim at the moment. I am absolutely loving the sheer number of aircraft that we're seeing come out that recreate vintage aviation. Like, this is just a completely different world of aviation. There is no sort of GPS. There's no sort of press button FMCs and can press a couple of buttons and you sit back and sip your coffee while the airplane flies itself. No. This is an era of aviation where pilots were pilots and you were hands on the controls the entire time. And as such, it can catch you unawares if you don't know how to. If you don't read the manuals. And if you don't know how to treat the aircraft right. So, with aircraft coming out such as from the Big Radials team, also aircraft coming out from developers like Wing 42, it is amazing to see these beautiful classic renditions of retro. We're going to call them retro aircraft, seeing them come to life in such amazing detail. Anyway, all right, now that I've waxed lyrical about that, let's jump into and looking into this aircraft specifically. So, this is, and I was very specific about this when I introduced this aircraft. This is the JRF-6B Goose, not the G21. Now, the G21, of course, in the original sort of beginnings of the Grumman Goose was essentially it's a bunch of wealthy landowners in North America were looking for a luxurious way for them to be able to move between their homes in Long Island and the big smokes of New York and other places around America, and to do it in style. So they came together and they approached Grumman and basically said, here's a bunch of money, we want you to design an aeroplane that will transport us in supreme luxury, which then spawned Grumman's first monoplane aircraft. It spawned their first airliner as well. This is the G21 to enter service as an airliner. But this particular version that's been created and provided to us from Big Radials is not the G21. So there's no luxury fittings. This is a wartime, war surplus sample of this technology in this aircraft, because the JRF-6 was built to a US Navy specification as sort of the brand about the time as the world was marching inexorably towards war. The US Navy realized it needed a number of patrol aircraft and support aircraft to support its ships. So they saw this G21 Goose and went, you know what, we could really use with a light version of this that we could use for transportation and for patrol. And so the JRF-6 was born. So that's the aircraft that that's been recreated faithfully and in exquisite detail from the team at Big Radials. And as we've been going around the aircraft here, we can see that there's just such amazing attention to details being paid here. Right down to, for the rivet counters in you out there, there is absolutely plenty of rivets that you are going to be able to count by looking through this aircraft. We've got the sort of the marked walkway paths to be able to walk up and check the engines. And of course, this aircraft is powered by two Wasp Junior radial engines. Again, an important thing to note for those, again, I was alluding to earlier when we were talking about those you flew in FSX and were familiar with the Grumman Goose, the G21 Goose that came with that, with FSX and was adapted to work with other sims. Indeed, the lead designer and the leader of Big Radials produced and did a port over of the old school Microsoft G21 Goose and brought it to life in Microsoft Flight Simulator. You'll notice that the floats here have a lot of strut wires and are very, very fixed, and they are not on the wingtips. And that's because the JRF-6 did not have retractable floats. In fact, the Goose did not have retractable floats. That was a quality of life improvement that was an optional availability that was done long after the Goose had stopped being produced. That was made available to as a modification that could be done on Gooses. And I've been assured by Ozwookie Big Radials that it is not geese. A plural of Grumman Goose is not geese, Grumman geese. It is a Grumman Goose. It is Grumman Gooses, and I've been assured of that. So yeah, that is but one of the differences that you'll notice here, along with the original two-bladed props from the Wasp Junior engines. And just generally, the rough and tumble of this airframe. We've got this beautiful, all this wear and tear. This is an airframe that has been living for quite a number of years and has been created to us and given to us in this exquisite detail from the team as well. It is still a full amphibian though, so you do have undercarriage options, and of course you can tuck those in and land on the water. So you do have amphibious options for this aircraft, and we will show off those a little bit later on in the video today as well. So as we've gone around the outside here, as I said, it's just looking at this exquisite detail and just all the little things that make up this aircraft. And just, for me, seeing the quality of this model is just absolutely outstanding, and seeing the work that the Big Radials have put into it to bring it to life with all the cabling, all the radio cabling sort of put through here, the strut braces and the bracing wires for the floats. It just really, really does bring this aircraft to life. Alright, so now that we've had a pretty detailed look at the exterior, let's jump inside the aircraft and we'll have a look and see what the office is like. Alright, so here we are in the very Spartan office that is the JRF-6B Goose. As I said, this is a no-frills military design. There is nothing luxurious about this aircraft as well. And yeah, and even sticking out the back down here, there are no luxury seats here. There's no cigar or cognac sort of canister here. This is all very, very Spartan. So you're not going to find any heights of luxury here, but it is a very utilitarian aircraft, which of course was why these aircraft proved to be so popular even post-war, and many of them still, and some of them still serve to still fly to this day, with over 300 being produced in their lifetime, and many, of course, surviving to this day. Some with some interesting little adaptations, of course. With probably the most unusual one, the most common one being the retractable floats. The most unusual, I think, being turboprops, but there is no turboprop version of this particular Goose. So we do get two variations of this aircraft. aircraft included as part of the kit. You get this basic configuration that we see here, but you also get a ski configuration as well, which was used by the Swedes, used in Sweden, where they replaced the wheels with a set of skis. Yeah, so there's only one color scheme for that one, but a kind of cool, nice little, interesting little weird and wonderful version of the aircraft to be portrayed. All right, so as I said, the aircraft is, fairly Spartan, and sort of say, oh, well, it must be simple to fly. It's like, well, you know what? It is easy to fly, but it is a bit hard to master. And one of the things that catches a lot of people out, of course, is the startup procedure. So we're going to be going through that very, very shortly. Now, fortunately, the team at Big Radials have been really, really good, where they've actually made sure that they've given us not only a fantastic manual, which is a great resource for you to be able to access, but they have also given us a fantastic and a fully detailed startup and shutdown checklist as well, so you can actually get through and do everything that you need to do. Now, speaking of, let's make sure to do this. Also, a kind of cool little thing, again, little detail, really like this, and those of you who have been watching me for a while know I love it, little details, is so we can open the pilot window, but I can't, and that's because the lock's engaged. So you have to unlock the window before you can open it. I know it's a small thing, but I really like the fact that attention to detail is there. Really cool. Nice work. Okay. All right. So basic, just to go through with the systems here. I mean, I'm not going to, these are, turner slip indicator, airspeed indicator, VSI. This is your radio nav and your course indicator as well. So this is fixed north up. This thin arrow indicates your current course setting that you've set your course to. And sorry, that your aircraft is pointing, and then this needle down here, the wide needle, is the point to the radio beacon that you might be detecting at the moment if you have your navigational radios on. Then across here, you've got what is a Gyropilot, which is a kind of autopilot. User beware. Basic controls, pretty much all the basic stuff. Behind us, we have your fuel system, and this is going to be really important as well, because if you love the wobble pump of the Spitfire from Flying Iron, or the one from Wing 42, you're going to love the one in here as well, because the wobble pump is very much back again. Something else to show off as well, which is kind of cool, is this little hideaway hatch as well. Now, I want to quickly sort of say that the theme of Big Radials is fly the damn plane, and I am 110% on board with that philosophy. It's, aircraft are meant to be flown, not, program a computer to let it fly itself. So, flying an aircraft, particularly sort of in regional, sort of rural areas where the Grumman Goose would often find herself, you're doing that with old school navigation, which is basically a clock, a compass bearing, and that's and the seat of your pants. That can be challenging for some modern aviators or people who are just getting into the hobby. So as a result, what they've done is they've got this nifty little hatch down here that we can open up, and then we've got this thing down here. So if you're not quite ready to give up your GPS life yet, or if you do need to program in for modern communications and modern identification frequencies, then you do still have these tools available in this little hideaway panel. This is also another great place as well, where we've got some cool little things where you can actually open up and add in some of the interesting new features to the aircraft as well. For example, you can change your yokes style, so you can actually put a leather outside on it if you so decide. Change the leather on it. It's a nice little cosmetic touch, but it's nice actually putting all that stuff to be down here on the bottom. We can hide and show the yokes. Instead of a click point, it's actually put away on here. The rest of these we'll talk about a little bit later on. I think we'll talk about those a little bit later on. All right, but we are going to be flying seat of our pants flying, as we are here in Canada today. So we're going to hide that one away for now. But we will show, as I said, we'll show off a couple of those things a little bit later on. All right, now, what are we going to do now? Of course, now we have to start the aircraft. Now, this is where it can be a little bit challenging. So we're going to go through our start procedure today. All right, so first things first is that we're going to look back here, and we're going to close the cabin door. Alright, so we're going to turn our batteries on. Battery 1 and 2 is on. Alright, we're going to go over here to our fuel system. We're going to turn our main fuel valve to both. We're going to set our crossfeed to open. We're going to get the fuel through to both engines. So there we go, fuel system is set. Okay, looking good. Now, all right, let's bring up the checklist that I was talking about, and let's do our checklist. Okay, so doors are closed, cargo is secured, cabin is secured, ignition is set to off, check. Fuel selector, well, that was off, it was closed, make sure it was set to idle cutoff, check. All right, so brakes, test and set. We're going to leave the parking brake on for our engine start. Battery master switches that we've turned on already. Carburetor heat is cold and in, check. Prop lever is set to minimum RPM, check. Fuel selector set to both, check. Fuel valve, no fuel valve. Oh, crossfeed is crossfeed isn't actually mentioned in that one. There you go. That's interesting. But our fuel valves for each of the engines is now open. Check. Fuel pump. Okay, so this is where we get to a wobbling. So we're going to do this one now. Unfortunately, you can't sort of just click and hold it. You do have to sort of keep manually hitting it. There we go. Okay, so a good few wobbles to bring that up. All right. Now, ignition needs to be set to on. We're going to start with the left engine. Okay. Mixture is set in cutoff for the start. Now, priming is fun. Now, priming, normally in a lot of aircraft we're used to a button. Priming, you don't prime with a button in this aircraft. You actually prime it by pushing the throttle lever forward several times. So I'm going to do 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. All right, now we're going to open up the throttles. Mags are on. All right, now we're going to go press our engine start switch. Now you've got to press and hold it, by the way, folks. All right, as she starts spinning like that, you then bring the mixture forward and the engine will catch. So it's not just and listen to that beautiful sound of that wasp radial. Oh, love it. So starting this engine is not just press a button and go. Like, you have to do a few extra steps with this one to be able to make sure it's all done. So just before, I probably didn't explain this one well. The ignition on is this center switch here. If you pull this out, then it isolates both ignition switches. Leaving it, push it in is ignition on. So just clear that one up for that one. Alright, now once that is up and running, we are at AR, which is automatic rich. Alright, so we can finish this one. And now we're going to restart this process for the right-hand engine. Alright, so I'm going to do some more wobbling. Okay, now we're going to prime the engine. So 1, 2, 3. 3 is minimum. Maybe I over-prime it, but I go for the 6. Alright, off. Mag set to both. Hold engine in for starter in. So watching that RPM indicator. There it is, and mixture forward to catch. There we go. We are all done. Okay, so we're adjusting for 1000 RPM. Okay, so now we're also going to have our prop RPM, so we're going to move our prop RPMs all the way forward. pull back the throttles a bit, make sure it stays under 1000 RPM. Now, as you would have noticed as well, like as the manifold pressures, like they do take time to stabilize. So the engines have been modeled with a custom, with custom coding here to make sure they behave as closely as possible to the real engines. Now, it is a little bit noisy, so as much as I love the sound of the radios, we are going to close that pilot window. It's a shame because it's just, but they're still beautifully deafening. I love it. All right, so throttle is adjusted, prop RPM is forward, engine oil pressure is in the, let's have a look, oil for fuel pressure is good, oil pressure is in the green, engine oil temp, so we can see that, because our left engine's a little bit warmer, and our right engine oil temp is slowly climbing into the green, but either way, it is both at least 30 degrees Celsius. Alright, that is our startup sequence complete. As I said, like it's beautifully detailed, and it does have a couple of those gotchas where, if you do have to press and hold that starter button, just pressing the button is not enough. You do actually have to do it properly. Alright, with that, I'm going to remember to turn my generators on. Okay, generators are good, they are on. Alright, now let's do our lights here. So we're going to turn, so white light is on. Okay, we're going to turn our position lights set to on. Landing lights on for departure. Pitot heat is on. Always important to have pitot heat, especially when you're here in the frozen north. Alright, so now, with everything prepped, it's time for us to taxi out and depart. So today, as I said, folks, we're going to be doing a little bit of a tour around here. We're going to go for this test flight, and of course, it wouldn't be testing out an amphibian if we didn't land in the water, so we will be look for a water landing in a little bit. Alright, so let's get the throttle up here. We've got the landing lamp extended there. Now, taxiing this aircraft is kind of fun. Be very careful, don't go too fast because she has a tendency to wobble a little bit. Also, because of the profile of the nose, if you brake too hard, she may end up on her snout. So just be cautious when you're braking, as well as when you're taxiing as well. That sort of rumbling of the engine as she's sort of going along here. Alright, runway's clear, so we'll line up on 23 for our departure today. Now, although most people associate power with, it's a larger aircraft, may not expect power. This aircraft is capable of a fairly short departure, and there are a couple of little techniques for that. So let's, let's attempt to practice some of the techniques for that. All right. So what we're going to do? Actually, we're going to go through our checklist here because we've got the runway to ourself at the moment with our run up. So we'll actually go back to put our parking brake on again. Alright, so we're going to go pull our yoke, because that's, again, with a run-up with this aircraft, it can be a little bit fun for this one. So we're going to go, parking brake is set, yoke full aft, prop RPM is full open, mixture is auto-rich, which is set, manifold pressure, looking to get it to 30 inches of manifold pressure. Cylinder head temps, going to keep them below 205 degrees. Oil pressure 70 to 90, we are good. Oil temperature less than 102 degrees. Fuel pressure 4 to 6, we are good. And it is actually important to do a run up for this aircraft for the engine, the way the engine is modeled on this aircraft, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. Alright, so normal takeoff. So normal takeoff is tail wheel is locked, which by the way, you do have a cast ring tail wheel for this one. So we do want to make sure that we lock our tail wheel for our departure. So tail wheel is locked. Now your normal takeoff is elevator trim is sort of set for takeoff, which is a couple degrees nose down. However, we're going to do a slight change of this one. We are going to do our short takeoff attempt, which is basically we go full stops before we release our brakes. And then we deploy the flaps as we're rolling. So we'll see if we can get a short takeoff distance here. Now, that maximum time for takeoff power, like 2300 RPM and maximum manifold pressure, that is super important. And again, we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the review video. All right, so let's see if I can make a fool of myself with this takeoff process. All right, so brakes on. Alright, so let's attempt this short takeoff scenario. Okay, so we're going to go for, okay, feet on the brakes. We're going to check that that's lined up a bit further. We're going to make sure we need to lock that tail. Before I lock that tail, there it is. Okay. I'm going to lock that tail wheel. Okay. Oh, by the way, the front hatch opens, by the way. Okay, alright. Foot on the brake. Power up to 35 inches of manifold pressure. Engine spooled up, brakes off. Flaps as 40 knots comes in. And airborne. Gear up. The interesting thing is you can actually, and you may have heard the cranking as we took off there, and that's to do with the gear. It's a hand cranked gear, so you actually do get the sound of the cranking as the gear comes up and goes down, which is really, again, it's a really cool little thing. And if you're interested, that's where the hand cranks are for your gear. So yes, you can manually also operate them if you so desire. So it's again like some neat, cool little stuff that you get to see in this aircraft. Alright, and as you would have seen, and you saw with that short takeoff, this aircraft can take off in incredibly short spaces, which is again why it's so popular during bush flying and flying in remote areas, because of its power to weight ratio, with the options of being able to be able to take off and land in significantly short areas, and it does so. Therefore, it makes it perfect for bush operations. Alright, so our flaps are clean. We've cleaned up after our takeoff now. So now we're going to be flying through the valley here and get ourselves set up for a cruise here. We're going to go through a little bit of a tour here. We're going to get this aircraft beautifully trimmed out very shortly. Now, in terms of engines, so obviously, as you would have heard with the engines, again, you can really... This aircraft, you can very much fly by feel, which can be very challenging to do in the virtual aviation sort of space, because we don't have sort of actual sort of tactile feedback on controls, things like that. However, the sound set and the way the sound set's been modelled with this aircraft means that you really can fly this aircraft by feel. You listen to the pitch of the engines and the engines changes. You can really get a feel for what the aircraft's doing and how to fly it within the limits, because flying within the limits is really, really important, especially with the way the customized modeling that's been done for the engines for this aircraft means that if you don't treat the engines correctly, if you just run throttles thrown all the way forward, prop thrown all the way forward for the entire time, I hate to tell you this, but you are literally going to blow your engines. Once I was sort of establishing my manifold pressures here, so I'm just having a look here. So I'm running my right's running a little high at the moment. There we go, bring that one back. So we've got to check our mixtures set to auto rich, so that is good. So we'll be running around about 23 inches of manifold pressure, and I want to be running around about I'm running at what, 2150 RPM on this one. So we're going to keep an eye on our oil temperatures a little high for my liking at the moment. Oil pressure is good. Cylinder head temperature is fine. But yeah, that manifold pressure is a little bit high for my liking. So I'm going to bring that power back down a little bit. Okay. But you can really hear the engine as she's sort of backing back down. You can actually sort of keep if you listen to this aircraft, she will respond to what you're after, and you will be able to get a feel for how it's flying and if you're going to start doing things wrong. So now that we've established this as we head down this little fjord here, let's take a moment to go and have a look at what happens when you don't treat these engines right. Let's go find out. So if you are going to abuse the engines, they are going to come back and bite you, as what happens just about here. So you will find, even if you have damage on and damage off, sorry, this aircraft doesn't care about your sim settings. It will throw damage at you. So what you'll find is that as the engine overheats, it will start misfiring. You'll actually get fluctuations in power. You'll get this sort of smoke coming out of the aircraft. You'll see the performance change in the manifold pressure as the various parts of the engine basically start destroying each other, and you'll notice the significant drop in power as well. So this aircraft already, just with one engine already sort of having issues, it starts to become a little bit more challenging to control, and it will get worse the longer you go on for. And as you can see, just the same right engine just did the same thing as well. So yeah, this will get harder to manage the longer that you leave the engines like this. Now, of course, the thing is, what happens if you... So it's not just cosmetic, it's not just this pretty smoke, it actually does put engine performance. Now, what happens if you don't sort of come back? If you don't, you have a moment to pull back when you get the white smoke, but if you don't and you keep pushing it hard, you will get a complete engine failure, and you get this beautiful black smoke come out, and you see the aircraft's pitches suddenly sort of oscillates very suddenly to the left, because I've now got a dead weight on my left wing, and yes, it will, you lose the power, and you hear it in the engine as well. Like, the engine, she gives you plenty of warning coming up to it that something's going to happen, but when she goes, she goes. As I said, this little thing, I said I did this just to prove, to sort of show it off and be like, yep, this is how it is, and end up having to dead stick in both engines, as both engines failed on me. So I've retarded the left engine, and I have to retard the right one very shortly. There it goes. Yep, the right one is dead as well. Coming in, secure it all. One good thing about this aircraft, though, is that the flap system does not require engine power or hydraulics. It's a vacuum operated system, so fortunately you're still able to deploy your flaps when coming to approach. So when you have to dead stick it from making a mess of the engines, it is still possible to do. So I guess that's the advantage of an amphibian like this, is that we can put down anywhere, and you've got hand cranked landing gear. So, yes, these engines are temperamental, and it's amazing the level of detail that Big Radials has gone to design this one. All right, so let's, after we admire this very, very overcooked goose, let's use the magic of video editing to go back to a more normal flight where we take care of the engines. Alright, so now that you've seen what happens if you don't treat these engines right, let that be a lesson to you all. Now, in the meantime, or through the magic of video editing, I've got my aircraft set. We're going to be cruising through the fjords here in Canada. I've got myself established with our cruise profile for this aircraft. So cruising, you're looking around about 31 32 inches of manifold pressure and about 2100 RPM will give you a good operating sort of rhythm for the aircraft and give you decent range on the aircraft as well if you are looking for having a bit of a long cruise to your destination. And of course, during that time, all our gauges and instruments have come back into the green, so everything is running exactly as it should. Now, as well, there is as I said, like, this is very much a basic aircraft, and where you do fly the damn plane, as big radials love to say. One thing that it does have, though, is it does have a basic. It's a very, very early autopilot, so it's called a Gyropilot. You can't sort of just say, go do this. You have to, there's a lot more, it's very basic, is what it is. Think JU-52 basic if you have the JU-52. So what we're going to do is I'm going to roll onto up this field here. And then we're going to set the autopilot to show you how actually it sets to allow us to then at least to show you how to do it. Personally, though, I kind of prefer to hand fly this aircraft most of the time, to be honest, because I just love the hand flying of it. I really do. It's just one of those aircraft which is really awesome to hand fly. All right, so let's now that we've let's roll around here so we don't fly into a mountain while we do this. Interestingly enough, though, the manual has some really cool little neat tips and tricks in there, not just for flying the Goose, which has some great tips and tricks for flying the Goose in there. Also some general good aviation, particularly bush flying tips and tricks as well, which is always good. Alright, so let me roll this over, and there we go. So we're not going to fly into a mountain, at least not very quickly. Alright, so what we're going to do, so setting your autopilot, so we're going to set it to hold a heading, for example. So what we're going to do is we're going to be roll. So this two-part sort of heading information here. So the top part is your compass. This shows you what heading you're currently on. The bottom one is the heading that you want the gyropilot to try and maintain. So essentially what you do is you line the two of those up when you've got your where you want to go, which should be about here. And we've got wind drift going on here, so we're gonna have to I'm gonna try and put this a little bit further over that way. There we go. And so now we can move this heading. There we go, there we are, all set. Alright, so now what we do, and now with that set, so I chase the heading bug. There we go. Okay, so now you go gyroscope on and heading hold on. And then to adjust this, you actually adjust and it'll sort of try and make those two line up essentially. Like get it close to allow it to capture, because if you have it like 100 degrees off, it's not going to capture. It's just going to go, no, I can't do this. But if you've got it fairly close to it, then you should be good. But then to adjust your sort of aileron and your elevator, so for your vertical speed, for example, you adjust this knob here. So pull to the left to go down, push to the right to bring your nose up. So it's all very basic stuff, but yeah, it can be done. So if you do want to have some of the pressure taken off you, if you do want to take a breather from hand flying, then you can use Gyropilot, but don't expect this to follow a nav course. So don't expect you to use auto land or anything like that with this aircraft, because it is not going to happen. Bottom line, it is absolutely not going to happen. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn down that part of the field there, and then we're going to go jump out, and we're going to so once I've turned onto that heading, we'll jump back outside we'll jump outside the aircraft, and we'll have a bit of a look at this detail of this aircraft in her natural habitat. Alright, so here we are with the Goose in her one of her two natural habitats as she explores the wilderness of Canada here, and looking very, very sleek and very much like she belongs. As I said, like the 3D model is just absolutely outstanding. The use of the textures and the materials that the team have added here is just absolutely amazing, and just to bring to life that really weathered, rough look about the aircraft. So you can feel the history in this aeroplane, like you really can in this airframe, with the all the years of use. You know, this isn't some museum piece. This is an aircraft that has had years of service, and she's got the paint chips, and the battle scars to prove it. And the team have just done an absolutely incredible job of being able to create that and bring that to life. You get a number of different liveries, both sort of fictional and real life, that are included with this one, and the community's already started putting together some amazing liveries to support us as well. So yeah, great modelling as well. And as you saw, some of the effects that you can get from the when things go bang are also kind of cool with this one as well. Alright, it's as I said, it's just, she looks amazing just in this world. She really does, with all the modelling of the engines, just looking absolutely amazing. Alright, well let's, I'm going to quickly jump back in the cockpit before I fly into a mountain, and then we're going to rejoin this video as we come in to land for a water landing. Before we come into land here, it's probably a good chance to quickly show off the lighting of this aircraft at night. It is very basic, and can definitely, when you're flying bush troops, can feel very claustrophobic. But yes, you do have lighting available both for your passengers in the cabin and also for yourself and your basic gauges. But as I said, it is very limited, so I'd recommend not flying at night unless you know exactly where you are, would be thing, because otherwise, yeah, it's hard to see. Just saying, especially when you don't have any modern instruments. So it is available if you so desire, but I'm going to be I think I'm going to be sticking with day flying while I'm flying this aircraft, I think. Alright, so we are back, and I think I've picked out a really cool little spot to maybe have a spot of lunch and maybe do some fishing. So we're going to land down here. We're going to land down here on the water. So what we're going to do is going to prep everything for landing. So landing for this aircraft is kind of interesting. In some ways, it's fairly routine, but in other ways, it's kind of interesting. So the aircraft, the flaps on this aircraft are rather interesting. So the flaps essentially are driven by a system where, and I'm going to say a vacuum system. I might be wrong, but I want to say a vacuum system. But essentially, you can actually set the flaps like now while I'm still going faster than flaps would deploy, but they won't deploy until after I drop below the required speed. So I'm going to set 30 degrees of flaps straight away now, and they're not deploying, but once I'll bring the throttles back and I drop below the required speed, then they will naturally deploy. And it's actually a really interesting, it's actually a really good little system on this aircraft, because it means that you aren't going to suddenly break your flaps because you've oversped them. You literally can't overspeed the flaps on this aircraft. Okay, so we're going to be lowering, trying to bringing our airspeed down. When we come into land, we're going to be aiming for landing at around about, we're going to aim for our touchdown speed to be around about 40 knots. Now that also that light coming on there, because you actually have to make sure you can't just leave your throttles at completely idle. You do have to make sure they've got some power running to them, otherwise the engines can be fuel and oil starved, and that is not a position you want to be in. Okay. Our flaps all the way down, and gently dropping onto the water there. Bit of a bounce. And there we go. Alright, now we don't have a water rudder on this aircraft. You do have to rely on differential thrust and your rudder and your normal rudder to be able to do your turns. Be careful you don't turn too quickly as well. But if you do want the aid, there is a water rudder that you can turn on if you do want to give it a try. Alright, so we're going to turn around here. We're going to get into this little cove here. Go. I'm going to clean those flaps up. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the mixer back to idle cutoff. There we go. Shut our engines down. Close off the mags. There we go. Just those engines just winding down. It's just magnificent. It really is. It's absolutely magnificent. Okay, so let's secure the aircraft. We're going to RPM, propeller RPMs to low. We're going to turn our generators off and turn our battery master off. All right, now, a couple of things to do before we do this. I want to make sure that I have. Yes, I have indeed. Now, I want to show off a couple of, as I said, we're going to go outside. We're going to give our final thoughts. And before we give our thoughts, though, I want to show off a couple of things in this aircraft. Okay, so you do have the ability to access the front cabin there. That's there. And, of course, we saw it before, but you can open the front hatch. So you do that. Now, you can also, if I can find the click points... Actually, you know what? Let's do this another way. We can go back into the cabin here, and we can open up. We've got a little back door here with some equipment, and we also have our main door. So we can open up. There we go. So yeah, you've actually, and yes, you do have a latrine in the back area here as well. You also have a ladder that you can deploy here. So if you want to go for a swim, or climb aboard the aircraft. So I just love the fact that they even modeled a latrine in here. Like, Okay. Anyway, yes. So there's that, and then there's a couple of final other things that are really kind of cool that are just in our little hatch here. So let's go and open these up. So of course, along with that, you do have the ability to sort of so you can put the couple of things here. So we're going to put our anchor on. Anchor is on, and we're also going to go put the fishing stool out. So let's go have a look at this aircraft and give our final thoughts, shall we? So here we are. We can see on the outside to give our final before we give our final thoughts. So we can see we've got our anchor perfectly in place, tied off, and the perfect spot. We can fly and enjoy the perfect spot to go fishing, complete with a rod holder built into the aircraft. Like, I absolutely love it. Life goals right here to be able to own one's own amphibian. I'm not normally a fisherman, but if I had my own amphibian, I would totally take up fishing just so I could go and do that. Anyway, all right. Let's give our final thoughts on Big Radials JRF-6B Goose. Okay, this aircraft is fantastic. It is an amazing recreation of an absolute classic of vintage aviation, and really goes to show the level of evolution that Big Radials have gone through. I mean, this is their third product that they've brought to us for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Fourth, if you count their freeware modification and update and overhaul of the old FSX Goose, FSX and OZx Goose. But it's just such an amazing piece of work that's come into here. Like, an incredibly detailed model that's been come through here with all the animations that you can possibly imagine. Incredibly detailed texture work that's being done from the big Radials team, but huge amount of detail as well has gone into the flight modeling, the flight dynamics, and just simply things like the engine coding and the engine dynamics, because to have engines that will actually overheat. So, and even if you're running with failures off, you don't treat these engines right, they will fail on you. So to be able to go through and be able to model that custom code and give that to us is really impressive. Some people might say that, oh, it doesn't have a flight computer, so it can't be that hard. It's like, well, you know what? Actually, in many ways, I would very, very much to say that it actually is more challenging, and especially for us as virtual aviators, it is a great way to challenge your skills and to learn to become better virtual aviators by learning how to fly the damn plane, as the big Radials motto is. So for me, absolute top marks for the team over Big Radials for delivering an absolutely outstanding aircraft. An aircraft, not only does it look the part, it sounds the part, and it feels the part, and it flies the part. So for me, yeah, this is absolutely a must-have and grab for the sim. Now, this one is available for both PC and Xbox, so you can pick this one up either direct from the Big Radials store, or if you are thinking that you may want to pick it up for your Xbox, then it is also going to be available via the in-sim marketplace as well. All right, folks. Well, with that glowing recommendation, that does now round out the review video of Big Radials JRF-6B Grumman Goose. Thank you very much for joining us, and again, a huge shout out and a huge thank you to the team at Big Radials for providing the review copy of this aircraft today. Well, folks, as I said, that does round it out. Don't forget, as always, to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more. And don't forget, as always, you can catch up with me and all the things I'm up to between videos by following me on Facebook and on Twitter and on Twitch. Just search NovaWing24. All right, folks, thanks very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.